Friends, if you're looking for real old school laughs, you're in for a treat because we've got them right here. Flip City Magazine. Remember Mad Magazine? Then it went woke? Well, don't worry. Flip City has no chance of going woke. That's right. 4 times a year, you'll get an actual printed magazine full of jokes, stories, comics, and more, all about today's pop culture, entertainment, and woke politics. Flip City takes terrible entertainment trends we love to hate with hilarious parodies of Lord of the Rings, Stranger Things, The Walking Dead, Star Trek, Hunters, and more. Trust me when I say there is nothing else like Flip City on the market. So subscribe today. It will be delivered in print, or you can even get it digitally if you're one of those wacky Zoomers. Either way, follow our link and sign up today, and if you put in midnight, you get an extra 10% off. Check out Flip City Magazine today.
Good morning, everybody. How are you today? Welcome to Midnight's Edge in the Morning. It is Monday. We have a fine panel with us today. We have the boss man, Andre. How are you doing?
Greetings, everyone. I am excellent. It's a new week, new opportunities, and a new awesome panel to get things started just that right way.
Yes, we have the most dangerous man in YouTube right now, WDW Pro. How are you doing?
Coming to you live from the WDW Pro Bunker, where we are holding the fiends away.
And we have the least dangerous man on YouTube, Culture Casino.
Hi, everybody. I'm coming to you from a black hole.
Well, it is Black History Month.
So,
We agreed not to talk about your other career, Culture.
Yeah.
Not on this stream.
in the deepest, darkest recesses of space.
And,
That
Paul's-
one.
And also we have a Culture's best customer here, Paul Chato.
Are you?
Yes, I'm a regular viewer.
Thank you.
But thank you for being here, gentlemen. Hope you all are doing well this morning.
Yeah.
Glad to hear it. So to kick things off a little bit, I don't know if you want to give Pro just a moment or two to kind of explain what happened over the weekend or not, but yeah.
Oh, we're going to talk about Parcheesi today, eh? Well, in that case, so we had the situation where the Pro channel, the WDW Pro channel, was demonetized out of the blue very early in the morning, Saturday morning, something like 2 a.m., and the reason given was reused content, which is one of those catch-all situations where you really don't know how to respond, because it could be as simple as analyzing a trailer. It could be as simple as something popped up in an article while we were reading it. Almost every channel out there would have a difficult time figuring out how to respond to that. All of that said, continuing to create content on That Park Place, the YouTube channel. We also have now a brand new Patreon for WDW Pro, which is easy to find. It's www.patreon.com/WDW Pro, where we're going to post some stuff that's far too spicy to handle on YouTube. And once we get this monetization issue resolved with the Pro channel, we will resume videos over there. If it is one of those things where for 90 days it's still going to be in that situation, we'll still continue to create content over there. It's just unlikely that it will be as visible because, well, the algorithms don't promote that sort of channel that often. But we'll keep at it and keep going. We are resilient. So thank you for that opportunity, Tom.
Absolutely. And also we have joining us this morning, the one, the only, Chris Gore. How are you doing?
Hey, what's going on? Hey, everybody.
Good morning.
I'm glad you could make it.
Greetings.
Hey,
How you doing this morning?
Yeah, that seems like it has to be some error. It has to be some error. Geeks and Gamers went through the same thing. They were demonetized, and it was just a complete error. Sometimes we like to think that like YouTube's like this evil company. Not to say that isn't true, but I also think they're prone to mistakes and broken software that doesn't work. So God, I hope it gets fixed quick.
Well, now we have to hope for the benevolence of an intern somewhere, and we'll have the great adjudication of 2 minutes of their time to look at it and go, do we let them live or do we let them die? Thumbs up or thumbs down.
And it's a holiday weekend technically, right? So probably a lot of people are off because of presidents.
Yeah, but chances are the person who will be making this distinction is in Calcutta or something, so they don't have any time off.
Right. Yeah. Weird.
If that's a good or a bad thing, I will refrain from commenting on. But
I tend to think it might be a good thing. The more international the person is, the less likely they are to look at it and go, actually, I like Rachel Zegler. Let's keep this guy demonetized for more.
Well, maybe they'll be like Chris Stuckmann and just refuse to review your channel.
Right.
I saw that, was it Angry Joe that actually had some major pushback against that? The idea
I think
that
everybody has.
cold reviewing. But that's where we are. People are actually afraid to give a negative review, even when it is
Selective
negative
reviewing is what
quality.
I call it. Selective reviewing is what I called it.
I mean, Chris was just being a pussy.
Exactly.
Well, he just needs to say, I'm not going to review films anymore, period. Which means then he just needs to quit reviewing films. Ones he loves, ones he hates, done. Because if you're not going to review films and be a critic, then don't review films and be a critic.
It's really easy to solve the bad film issue. Make good films. Thank you, gentlemen.
That's going to debunk superhero fatigue argument, Paul. We can't do that. We're not allowed to say that.
I was to say, I think the part that rubbed everybody the wrong way was just the way he went about it, right? He went with this whole like, look, I understand how tough it is to make a movie. And, or wait, his sound quality was so horrible. I don't have the echo, but it's so horrible and hard to make a movie. And like, yeah, it was just like, is this dude even a professional? I'm like watching the video and I'm going,
and
whatever.
While I've never done a Hollywood level movie, I have made my share of independent movies. So I do know the difficulty with it. We all know the difficulty, asshole. I mean, for God's sakes, it's a crapshoot at the best of times. And you don't know whether it's going to work at the worst of times. It's just
I just don't understand. And Chris, maybe you can help me with this since you're probably been the critic the longest here on the panel and the most professional, I would say.
Well, he's the critic with the longest.
Yes, that's true. Probably. Well, that was Frank, I thought.
Certainly not. Certainly not your Asian friend, but okay.
But yeah, I mean, this whole idea of everybody.
When Paul even pauses because he wonders if he's going too far.
Yeah,
and then he goes for it. And then he
I'm going to go for it.
I half-assed forgot my question now, but I was along the lines of something like, just like, obviously your job as a critic compared to, this whole idea of, well, it's so hard to make a movie and I want to be nice to them because they worked so hard on it and blah, 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 blah. It's like, yeah, so does everybody else work hard on everything. Like, and if you do a shitty job at your job, your boss gives you crap, right? Like, that's just the way it works. I mean,
that's the only
not their boss, but I mean, it's the same thing like at a restaurant. And I remember, I can't remember which filmmaker it was that I got. Oh, it was the actor from Star Trek that looks like the guy from can't remember his name now. Anyway, he was like, well, if you get bad food at a restaurant, you don't yell at the chef. I'm like, yeah, actually you do. You report it to the waiter, and then you let them know that it's shit, right? Like that's what a critic's job is to be. But anyway, Chris, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, it's no big deal. Look, I do have conflicts sometimes because I've been around in the industry, and when I feel like I've got a direct relationship with the filmmaker, I just recuse myself. I don't make a video about it. I don't make it a big deal. It doesn't mean that the movie doesn't get reviewed. It just means that I don't personally do it, right? I've been around long enough where just like, it's like, okay, Alan can review this one, or I know this guy, let's get someone else from the website to review it. And whatever. I mean, it's definitely
right.
Because I've been around so long, I know a lot of people. So I will recuse myself. We used to do that in our court system sometimes. If a judge had a bias, they would just recuse themselves. That doesn't happen as much as it used to for some strange, weird reason. Anyways, so the issue I take with the Stuckmann video is that it's hard to make movies. Maybe. I don't think so. That's the whole point of even Film Threat is that like, here's how to do it. It's not as difficult as you think it is. It's not a magic trick that you yourself can't learn. It's ridiculous. A guy, we just did an interview with him last week. My buddy, Jim Agnew, who I've known for over 20 years, used to be a writer at Film Threat. He would come with us. We would get a condo, and in Park City, Utah, there'd be 8 dudes stuffed in a condo, drinking beer, light beer at like 8 in the morning, reviewing movies all day, going to parties at night. He was freaking crazy. And Jim was one of those dudes. And he's like, I've met a lot of these filmmakers. I think I could make a movie. So Jim's like this guy, and he just like was in a band that was mildly successful. And he's writing reviews for Film Thread. And he's like, I think I could do this. Since then, he's made a movie with Dario Argento, worked with John Carpenter, made a movie with Nicolas Cage, and he's a WGA screenwriter from 20 years ago to now. And he said part of the reason that motivated him is it's not that hard. And I was talking even to a film critic. You may or may not know who this person is, Rod Lurie. Look up Rod Lurie. Okay. I knew Rod back in the day in the 90s, when he used to write for Los Angeles Magazine. He wrote one of the best reviews of Batman Returns. Just because I thought it was funny. I don't agree with his opinion, but I thought it was funny. He hated Batman Returns. He said that Danny DeVito's character as the Penguin, he looked like a pair of shaved testicles. Yet Rod decided, and I remember having a conversation with him. I had a conversation with him, and he stopped being a movie critic at Los Angeles Magazine. In fact, he was a movie critic right up until his first feature was released. That was his day job. And he did a movie called The Candidate with Joan Allen. And he did some other movies. Just look up Rod Lurie. He's made a ton of movies. Former military guy, became a film critic, who then became a filmmaker. And he was like, in no other industry does someone who covers the thing, like no one thinks that covering LeBron James goes, I could do what LeBron James does. No sportscaster thinks I could do that. No one thinks like, well, I could, I could win the Super Bowl, right? Like they don't think that. But when you're covering film, you actually can go make a movie. And he goes, we had this whole conversation, like, why don't more people who are covering this, like, just go out and make it? It's not that hard.
Ron Bass did.
Huh?
Ron Bass was a critic at the Toronto Star, then went off to write screenplays.
All the Cahiers du Cinema guys, this is really freaking old school from the 60s. Francois Truffaut, Jean-Luc Godard, like that, the whole French New Wave movement was a bunch of movie critics that are like, we'll just make movies. And they did. And they just made different types of movies at the time. Like in France, movies were garbage. They were just very mainstream garbage. They're like, we want something different. Why don't we just make it like as an example of how it could be done? So Rod Lurie became, a filmmaker. So did my buddy Jim Agnew. I've made films. I've sort of kept one foot in, one foot out. But his statement that like movies are hard, I disagree with. If you can learn it, if you take the time to learn it, it really is about dedication more than anything. Nobody makes a movie. Nobody writes a book. Nobody writes a screenplay. What you do is you do little pieces of it every day. So if you can write, 500 or 1,000 words a day, in 2 or 3 months, you'll have enough words for a book. Okay. That's it. It's dedication. The only thing that separates you from the person who did it is they were more dedicated and more disciplined than you. So if you can learn discipline and you can break a project down into its smallest pieces, it's doable and it's not that hard. That's the whole point of why Film Thread exists, is I'm trying to show you how to do it. I'm trying to say, here are the people who did it. They are regular people. Ask them questions. Now you go do it, whether you write a screenplay or whatever. And not everybody's cut out to, be a writer. Maybe there's other, filmmaking's a team sport. There are all types of jobs on a film set. Maybe you're more inclined, maybe you're more technically inclined, so you're more camera department or this, or maybe you're more of a manager type. So you're a producer, you're fundraising, you're putting together deals, you're working on hiring talent. All of those things are needed to make a film, and you learn them all on an indie film. That's why Hollywood is currently dominated by people who were formerly indie filmmakers, Greta Gerwig and Christopher Nolan being the two big examples. But the thing that I think bothers people about Chris Stuckmann is, one, he's always been kind of milquetoast as a critic. Never really had an opinion that ever really, like, he's very milquetoast. His opinions, I don't feel like I learn anything. And I just wonder, like, I look at people like I still watch John Campea. I think he is an amazing broadcaster. I don't agree with his opinions, but he's very, very good at being a broadcaster and putting on a show. Is very professional. Plus Rob Burnett's on the show, so that's kind of why I watch. But
Is he back on?
Oh, it's a plus. Yes, he's back on.
he's recurring. He's recurring.
Yeah.
So in any case, my whole thing is the reason I think people are reacting so hard to Stuckmann is, one, it's kind of like you didn't need to say any of this. You could have just not reviewed it, meaning just don't say a thing.
Right.
But he's trying to say, I'm better than you because my opinion is of this. It's this elitist attitude. That's why people are reacting to Stuckmann, is because he's being such an elitist prick about it. Is I made him. Hey guys, guess what? I made a movie and it was really hard. You don't see me doing that shit. I've done a lot of that stuff. So has Rob Burnett. So has Paul Chato. A lot of people. You've done projects. You've made films. You've done TV. Whatever. Fine. It's not magic. It's not rocket science. You can do it if you have the discipline, and no one is stopping you, especially in indie film, no gatekeepers. You can decide to make a movie.
Well, you know what's hard?
Huh.
Working from a crappy script with lousy people.
Exactly right. But
Okay,
so
that's what's hard.
He's acting like studio movies are above criticism. I think that they should be critiqued more because they have no excuse.
None.
There is no excuse for any movie being made by a studio, by people who know the film industry. And this is actually the problem right now in the movie industry, that the people making the decisions, I don't even blame the people who made Madam Web. I blame the executives who decided to make it, who greenlit the script, who put the pieces together, who wrote the checks. They're to blame because they're the ones also who backtracked and completely. I mean, that movie went through a lot of changes. We don't need to go into it. The ADR of Ezekiel, the character, is just so off. So I think the reason people are reacting so strongly to the Stuckmann thing, and I jumped in a conversation with Joe Russo. I think a lot of people, they think he's one of the Russo brothers. He isn't. He's a guy who's like made some indie horror films, right? But even his attitude, I'm like, bro, I don't say bro ever. I'm saying that, shout out to the 199. Bruh.
But this movie wakes up feelings, doesn't it?
It does. It's like, look, there's no excuse. They've got all this money, whatever. Is Sony trying to build up to some end game event with spider characters?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they were.
Being the operating word here.
Correct. Yes, were. So, but the Stuckmann thing really hits people because it's like, F you. He just seems entitled, elitist.
Maybe that's what I was reaching for. Yeah,
I'm better than you because of this. Like, look, I think that all of this is teachable. Everything that when it comes to making a movie is teachable, and you can learn most of it online. And there's no reason that, like, freaking Spike Lee, before he made She's Gotta Have It, was selling shoes. He was working retail, okay, and cobbled together money to make a little 16mm movie where he features himself as a character named Mars Blackman, which then ended up being featured in shoe ads. Ironic. Good for him. I applaud that success because being an indie filmmaker is being an entrepreneur. You've got to learn entrepreneurship. And that's something that I, at least through Film Threat, try to inspire or show you. Here's a filmmaker. We're going to ask them questions. Go. Like, ask them all the questions you want. So, and also we try to just point out the BS of Hollywood, but there's no excuse when you've got that much money. The director of that movie, she had all this money. Look, I've been on low budget studio stuff. I did a show for FX. I did a show for Stars. I did 2 seasons of a game show for IFC. When there's money, it's great. When there's money and all these people running around and there's no excuse. You better be good at what you do. But Hollywood completely lacks today executives that understand the history of film and that understand the audience. And that is the disconnect. That's what we've all been talking about. There's a huge disconnect. And then the filmmakers that feel like they have an understanding of the audience, who can play by Hollywood's rules and get away with it. Nolan, I think, being one of the smartest, who would have thought that his movie, an R-rated biopic, but a guy who was...
I wouldn't go giving him too much credit because his last movie wasn't that great. But yeah, I see where you're coming from. I agree.
Well, not for lack of trying, though, Tom.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I'm not disagreeing with Chris's point. That's what I'm saying.
This situation feels to me like it feels like a guy who goes to a restaurant. He sits down, he receives a bowl of soup at the restaurant, and he says, "I'm sorry, this soup is inedible." And the server turns to the person and says, "Excuse me, sir, do you realize this was made by a woman of color?" And the man says, "Actually, I've made soup before. It's very hard. I'll keep the soup, thank you." You know, that's what it feels like. It's just, let's grade these things on the quality of them, and let's stop paying attention to exactly what constitutes the people behind it. And I would also say too that in I'd like to get the panel's thoughts on this in reference to the idea of making a movie. It seems to me that we're at the precipice of that being infinitely easier with artificial intelligence tools. I don't know if you guys have seen the SORA. It's not just creating an image any longer, but it's creating video. And I don't know how feasible that's going to be. I don't know if you can, get it to maintain the image of a particular character so that you can make a movie using that artificial intelligence. I don't know if it'll be even capable of copyright, but it seems to me that the individual with the laptop, they have the ability to make music, and they have the ability to edit, and then go out and then capture video. But we're getting to the point now where it's going to be much easier, even if you just track technology. And I'm hopeful that that's going to democratize the ability to make entertainment more and more, so that people who do have an interest and do have that dedication that Chris was talking about, that they can go forth and make these sorts of things.
100%. I've become obsessed and gone down a rabbit hole of looking at AI versions of trailers for movies. They're not really trailers, but they're AI generated images to music.
Like the Star Wars one in the 1900s.
Star Wars, like Stanley Kubrick's Star Wars, Alejandro Jodorowsky's Dune, or there was a really good one, Wes Anderson's Dune, I thought was very good. It was actually clever and had some fun lines. But I think AI is just a tool, and it will make a lot of small indie movies look bigger budget. There was a science fiction romantic comedy. It's basically When Harry Met Sally, a sci-fi version of it.
Nice.
Paul, you would appreciate this movie. Look this up. It's called Molly and Max in the Future.
Okay.
Molly and Max in the Future. Check out the trailer. It's a science fiction movie. It was made not in front of the volume, but like in front of a tool that's similar to the volume. They use stop motion animation. Really fun. I had the director on. Really, really clever. It's all in the writing. It's all in the writing with it. And they use like big budget effects. They stop motion animated spaceships, of all things, that they kit bashed. Really clever. And it just shows you what's possible. So this whole thing with Stuckmann, I think people are reacting to his elitism and his almost virtue signaling, but like, I'm better than other critics because I've made a movie. Seriously.
Well, and I want to refer to your both what Pro said before and your articles, your series of articles that you guys have been putting out. And that is the whole thing about just this whole idea of if you get a bowl of soup, somebody tells you the woman of color made it, so you just accept it and be like, oh, well, it's great. Thank you for see, that's the difference. And I love when you point out every day that Hollywood needs to be reminded daily that they make shit that people don't fucking need. Okay. So to sit there and go that, you should be nice to that person because they worked really hard on that movie. It's like, so they didn't work hard enough.
So did the roofer.
And this is another thing I've gotten from other people inside the home media business, which is on a very rocky ground now too. But I get a lot of people going, well, look, you shouldn't complain about this problem or that problem because, a lot of people worked really hard on this. And I'm like, well, maybe they should be fired because they fucked up horribly. Right. Like, it's like,
also, I'd like to add,
go ahead.
They got paid. This is
exactly.
Their job.
They also
you
got paid.
Never,
exactly.
ever feel sympathy whenever you have a studio production. Never feel sorry for the people who worked so hard on it. Fuck the people who worked so hard on it. They got paid. They got paid for their job, for making this thing. And if people like what they did, That's a
Great.
bonus, but they
So
got paid anyway.
and
I
the
will
thing-
make an exception, and that is if you have like an indie movie where you have someone who is really trying without resources because they don't have a studio behind them. I'll make an exception for that. That is the one time when they tried really hard. There is merit to that because they didn't have a studio behind them. When Sony puts out some shit like Madam Web, fuck him. I don't care how hard they worked. It wasn't good enough.
If I can add,
Go for it.
Go for it, Paul.
that,
I asked second part too.
you know,
yeah.
again, the hard part, it's really about exhaustion. I've been involved in these things, and you're exhausted at the end of the day, and then the next morning you are so excited to get back to work and put in that 15-hour day with the extended meal breaks and overtime for, you know, everybody, and you know the budget, you know, you can't take the hit, but you got the light, you got to do it. There's nothing more exciting than it. It's addicting. And yeah, it's hard is not the right word. Hard means feel sorry for me. It's there's nothing you
They're
should
not
feel
fucking
sorry
nurses.
for me
Okay.
about it. It's exciting every single morning. It's exciting when you go, okay, I've now spent the last 2 hours blocking out the script, and I've only got 2 hours worth of sleep because I want to go in there and I want people to have the confidence that I know that I know what I'm doing, because that is the biggest fear that I have when I'm directing something, is that, you know, they don't think I know what I'm doing. So that's on me, purely on me. But at no time is it hard. It's just exhausting and it's exhilarating. And what I don't understand is, again, everything starts with the script. And you know when you're directing, when you've got a lame actor, or they're just not delivering the lines the way they need to deliver them, or heaven help you if you're working on a comedy and you've hired what we call a joke killer. Now, I don't know if Chris understands that term, whether when you hire an actor who you thought was funny, but they're actually joke killers, and you know, they're not bringing the comedy to the screen. But you can cut around that stuff. So there's multiple parts of this I don't understand. When you see Quantumania or Madam Web, is at some point they must have shot enough footage that in the hands of a decent editor, they should have been able to cobble something together that made sense. Because I've edited too, and I've saved an awful lot of stuff in the edit, and I'm not even seeing that. So that to me, you know, conveys to me that right now they're starting off with such a bad script.
Well, that actually leads me to my second point, Paul.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm glad you brought that up, because that goes to the second point when I was talking about the series of exposés that Chris and those guys have been putting out over there. And that is, I think that the main core of this problem is in the same is the same thing across the board that they're dealing with in animation. I'm sure there's several of these other groups, like there are women in animation. And to me, the biggest thing that I saw in that expose so far is that they're taking these women and they're teaching them how to get rid of the old white men and replace them without actually teaching them how to do their jobs. Okay, so now you have this all throughout the industry. You have a bunch of people who have never actually earned their jobs, learned how to do them, or actually have any actual fucking talent. Okay, so that's what you have right now. And all these people have usurped all the old white men and old people who don't agree with their ways, right? And this is the problem all throughout the board. And all these people are like a bunch of whiny crybaby bitches because they think that everything should just be handed to them and they should be praised like all the people in the past did. It's like, no, the people in the past that got praised is because they actually did something worthwhile. You have yet to do a fucking thing worthwhile. And Madam Web sure ain't fucking it, right? Like, that's the thing that needs to be pointed at, and it's called bad.
It all starts with the script. The animation issue is another layer of horribleness, because it's more difficult to animate well than to get a bunch of actors together and shoot them on film. I mean, that's
well,
much
unless
easier.
you're Alec Baldwin.
Well, then there's a different kind of shooting.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
You know what? You know, and when you talk about film and talk about studio oppression, which exists, I mean, no one will disagree with you that studio execs make bad decisions on a regular basis. I've talked about the movie The Big Clock, which John Farrow directed, and the studio said he can't have final edit. And he went, no, I always have final edit. So what he did was he shot the entire movie with no coverage. So when the guy edited it together, the guy, Farrow, the script was so good, and Farrow was such a good director that he basically cut it as he was shooting it. And when the editor got the all the footage together, he had no choice but to cut it together the way John shot it.
There's a few
And it's
directors
a
that are that
brilliant
good,
movie.
yeah.
It's actually one of my favorite movies of all time.
So
The big
I'm betting
plot.
that there's at least a few truckers out there listening to this right now, driving across the continent. And I would just suspect that it's hard for the average person to listen in to what we're talking about with movies when they understand that if you're a trucker, for example, if you arrive at the destination and you're 300 miles off track and you call in and say, we've had a whoopsie here, I don't think your trucking company is going to say, well, trucking is hard.
Yeah.
I don't think that's the response you're going to get, you know? And so average people, and I say that in quotes because I think average people tend to be more than average. I think they tend to be wonderful. But the people who do the daily tasks, they don't get this kind of, just brush it off. It's okay. You lost a couple $100 million. We'll move on. They don't get that. And it's not the way that their world works. It's not the way that their life works. And that's where that elitism comes from, I think.
And Pro, because it's also a privileged business, it makes it sound even worse.
Right.
You're right.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
And I do want to point out that it was brought up about the animators and the idea of pushing them out. I talked to Alan. He was messaging me late last night and early this morning, but got confirmation. You know, there's an animator who was legendary at Disney. We're talking about the guy who was the lead animator for basically every female character for like 3 decades. His name is Mark Henn, Henn. Chris probably knows a little bit about this guy. He's phenomenal. By the time they got to the point of making Wish, it had become such a toxic environment. And by the way, he retired after Wish. It had become such a toxic environment that this man who animated Ariel, Jasmine, Belle, you can keep going, had been there since the late 80s. He was no longer allowed, and there's quotes of him saying this, he was no longer allowed to tell them changes they needed to make in Wish. He was only allowed to give sort of suggestions, passive suggestions of what he might do if it were him. And I think that's the environment that we've arrived in, where you can't do mentorship because they've cast aside the mentors and said, it's our movement now. Well, they're not competent.
It's like mentorship is perceived as mansplaining when it's such an hypersensitivity. I mean, it really is a generational thing at this point.
Oh, you're right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I actually, I'm going to reveal here first, Chris, I have a blockbuster, hopefully, piece of news I can add to your animation.
Let's see it.
Stuff. I can't do it yet. I have to get permission from an individual. A bunch of students have approached me at a animation school in Canada and have said things far worse than you guys have revealed.
Real well. So first of all, the thing is this: you're only seeing what we are revealing,
right?
The stuff that I've seen, the specific examples and stories about people are horrible. It is such a toxic work environment.
Yes.
It's like Disney hates its own employees, and they actually take pleasure in some instances. I've heard I've read detailed stories that have been sent to us about the HR department just treating people in such a horrific way. Like it's like they enjoy bullying. It's a bullying, horrible environment.
Well, after your thing, I was curious, what about the input stage? What's happening at the animation schools? So I actually approached some students I know at a premier animation school in Canada and asked them. And the one quote I'll say, they sent me a massive email. We are woke up the wazoo. Eggshells are the new linoleum.
Oh my God.
And only 17% of the people in the class out of 145 have testicles, they said now.
Right.
And I won't go any further, but I'm trying to get permission from these students to
Paul, not all of those testicles, not all of those testicles identify in the masculine either, I would say.
No, they do, but they're having problems.
Ooh.
Right.
Well, and I don't want to shift gears too
Anyway,
much
so
here.
there you
but
go. I hope to be able to get that tantalizing bit of stuff on the air.
Absolutely. I
myself.
can't wait to hear what you have to say there. But again, like I don't want to shift gears too much, but back to the Madam Web thing, because we got to talk about that box office business. And I'm assuming after this weekend's box office, one thing about Sony, I think that at least a few people on the panel might agree with, is Tom Rothman ain't about to like lose no more money on this shit. I think this is the end of the road for this crap for him. They're already talking about retooling that Silk series, which I think Andre pointed out in his video yesterday is going to get axed. So yeah, Culture, take us through this crappy ass box office weekend. Bob Marley is the only one who seems to be coming out ahead in the last couple of weeks.
Actually, this film is being called an overperformer right now, and it's again because there's so little to offer in theaters. I mean, I know that
people dig these kind of movies, whether they're good or bad, right? Like look how good the Queen film did, Elton John film, stuff like that.
Yeah, biopics, especially for musicians, indeed. But you know, there's so little to offer in the box office right now. I mean, Wonka's now 10 weeks in. I mean, and it's still in the theaters, even though
it hit
it's
over
already
600 million now. I heard,
2,300 screens. That's amazing.
Well, it's on video on demand, no less.
Yeah. It's I can get it on in VOD form, but it's just you look at all these films and how poorly they're performing, and when you can hold up the fact that you got 10 weeks of Wonka and 9 weeks of Migration. These are films we haven't seen films that have been in theaters this long. It's usually 6 weeks and I'm out, right, Chris? I mean, we're getting that 45-day window.
They're getting themselves back down to the way they used to be. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And so Madam Web performing the way it did on a 6-day opening weekend, which includes today, and the fact that it's globally still under $50 million in earnings.
Ouch.
I mean, this is a real problem, and the per theater average is artificially inflated because there were days that the theaters were only making like $1,000 a screen.
I have never seen so many empty theater pictures from people in my life for this than I have for this movie.
Yeah, look, the proper 3-day weekend here showing 15,350,000. That's nothing in 4,000. That's nothing.
No, this is DOA as DOA can be.
Yeah,
now, to just jump ahead of this a little bit before we go like, oh, it's dour and it's bad for them. Look, Sony's got to deal with this. I think they're going to squeak by just barely with not a profit maybe, but breaking even. And I'm sure Culture, you can break that down a little bit, kind of like Andre did some of that in his video yesterday, but
yeah, I mean, and here's the thing. They tried to say, well, this only has an $85 million budget. That's a lie. It's over. The trades are even reporting that this is over $100 million in budget. They might get some film credits that'll help bail them out. But then they spent an equal amount of money in promotion, and 75% of their promotion budget of the 80 million or so that they spent in promotion, 75% of that went to social media targeted demographics, which were female and younger. They didn't show up at the theater. The in theater participation was like 54 to 57% male, depending upon the location. And the post-track score didn't matter what sex you were.
It was basically the opposite effect Barbie did. Yeah.
Yeah.
There was an interesting thing though in the post-track score, because the ones that rated the movie highest, everyone rated the movie bad. Let's begin with that. Yeah. Everyone rated the movie bad. But the ones that rated it least bad were women under 25. And the one that rated it most bad was men under 25. So you have like a bigger difference between genders there, which are under 25, which I thought was interesting.
Well,
I would have thought that men under 25 would be more forgiving since they have been more conditioned. Let's put it that way. But that's not the case. Culturally, we're saying.
No, I was just going to add to that is what's worse is that this out of the box had one of the worst cinema scores I've seen in a long time. I think it had a C+.
Oh God, that's horrible. Yeah, I haven't seen one of those in a while.
Yeah, and so I'm, overall, when I was going through all the numbers and everything, and I went, and tried to do forward projections on this film, this thing may not make back its promotion budget.
Well, and here's where I say it might actually squeak by because people keep forgetting, and I thought you'd remember this, Culture. Sony has that Netflix deal.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So they
That's gonna
probably
help.
will just squeak by with the product because I'm betting they got like a $40 million deal or something like that for this movie from them. So that'll
Tom,
probably cover most of their losses.
Pacing for this, Tom, I mean, consider this. Right now in the United States, as of the moment we're speaking, it's only made $23 million.
I know, it's horrible. This is one of the biggest flops we've seen in a while. I'm not trying to downplay this at all. I'm just trying to say that Sony's not going to take the hit we think they are, but I can guarantee you that Tom Rothman is going to cut any of the future Spider-Man spin-offs sans anything Venom from here on out.
The days of slapping Spider-Man.
Wes Craven is huge.
The days of saying, well, it's related to Spider-Man, therefore it gets the green light, I think that's over. Yeah. I also think that this is another indication that the MCU does not work.
Yep.
Because women, if you go look at the demographics for Madam Web,
yep,
the demographics show the majority men going to support this flop. Women are not going to support these female represented comic book movies. I want to show you briefly, and I don't want to sidebar at all, but just briefly. Whoever's in control of this, you're going to need to scroll down in just a moment, but I want everybody to look at the per theater amount because there's something also to go back very briefly to the animation issue. If you take a look at Migration and the amount that it made per theater, there's something remarkable if we scroll way down. So, Tom, if you're in control, or Andre, whoever, could you scroll down to about the 15th slot? Is that possible?
Sure. Yeah, hang on a second. I got you. Boom.
Keep going. Take a look at Turning Red.
Oh, yeah.
This needs focus because, Chris, this is why they're terrified of Inside Out 2. Disney had planned to release 3 Pixar films for the very first time. They were placed on Disney Plus because of the pandemic, ostensibly. Disney was looking at a strategy of doing this because last year, The Nightmare Before Christmas and its re-release made $10 million. So this should have been easy money. And then Disney partnered with Fandango. And the deal there was, well, if you go watch all 3 of these, we'll give you a free ticket to Inside Out 2, and that will bolster the box office for Inside Out 2. All positive, right? The problem is that Soul bombed so terribly that it was an embarrassment to Disney even for a re-release. But this is impressively bad. Turning Red managed to make $208 per theater, and 1,500 theaters is nothing to sneeze at. They're going to try to say, well, these are re-releases. We had no expectation. But I'm telling you right now, the theaters that are contractually obligated to keep this on 1,500 plus theaters, and we know that's the case because the theater number has stayed steady for both Soul and this one, they are losing money because you cannot turn on the lights and the projector, let alone pay to have the popcorn scooped up for $208 per screen.
Wow.
Throw out.
Yeah. No, like this is bad for Disney. Go ahead, Chris. I'm sure you got something to say about it.
No, it's been a bomb. Also, Soul came out, bombed. They're doing like these promotional popcorn buckets.
Right.
These movies are not resonating. Now, there's a theory. They've been out, man. Like, look, if you have it, if you have Disney Plus, you have it. Maybe you don't have it. You have it on digital or DVD, whatever. I think this is a huge bomb. They would do much better, and I'd love to get everyone's thoughts on this. What if they re-released the original Snow White to theaters with maybe a little documentary about like how it was made, conditions,
weird,
like weird and problematic, but they do better. They bring in more audiences that way.
If they re-released, and they used to do this, they would re-release the Disney classics. Like, remember the whole thing? It's going in the vault. It's going in the vault.
Yep.
Okay, forget the vault. Like, there are a generation of kids. They used to generationally, like, we're going to re-release these movies. We're going to do Lion King again. Like I was fortunate when my kids were young. Some of those films would come back and re-release. They've done very well. I saw Dune 1984 yesterday.
Yeah, I saw that was
in a theater. And it's still today. Fathom Events. You can see the 1984 David Lynch Dune in a theater. There's a little BTS making of at the beginning. I still have, maybe you could put me full screen. I have the Dune Sandworm from David Lynch's 1984 Dune.
Nice.
And I was watching it with my Dune 84 Sandworm and the popcorn bucket, which I have right here.
How'd I know you're going to show us
Part
that?
1, Part 2 popcorn bucket. So both of these are
Does
now
the worm fit in the bucket?
I you know what? I'm just not gonna go there, Tom.
Oh, come on. I knew you were heading that
Use your
direction.
imagination.
We want to see it. We need completion. It's
Anyway,
like Wormception.
but I'll say this: it was packed. I also saw Wizard of Oz like 2 weeks ago, which had a little intro by Leonard Maltin, which was really fascinating. Like, so these re-releases, they can do really well, but the thing is, Fathom Events actually makes it an event. They're usually like only 3 or 4 screenings. Every time I go, it's packed. I saw The Dark Knight, right? 2008. Chris Nolan, The Dark Knight, might be one of the greatest superhero movies ever made. And it was a packed audience, and I was shocked. I was like, wait a second. I realized there's a whole bunch of people who were too young to see this movie in a theater in 2008. Here it is 2023, and 15 years later, they're seeing it on the big screen for the first time. That's really interesting. So I think Disney has the wrong approach. They're doing like this wide release. It has to be limited and show movies that aren't so recent. Turning Red came out a couple years ago and was not well received when it came out.
Well, you know what's really
they're trying
embarrassing to them is the Puss in Boots situation, because
Yeah.
that most recent Puss in Boots movie was available on streaming while it was available at the box office, and it still outperformed this by,
Correct.
Well, so
what,
is it
1,000?
Migration right now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
and this, Chris, you answered. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to introduce the idea because Chris brought it up. So the last time that it was re-released, Snow White, was 1993. And so it was re-released to a reception of $12,615,132.
You sure they didn't re-release it one more time after that? Because I swore it got a re-release just before the DVD came out in like 1999 or 2000.
Well, I'm looking at. I'm just giving you a number from when it.
Well, I
made back in
believe
the
what you're
theaters.
looking at, but I swear
Yeah,
it got
Tom, I was
re-released
thinking it was
again.
about 98. I think you're exactly
Yeah,
right.
because I know when it got, because they did that DVD, it was a big remaster. But Chris, go ahead and finish your point, Culture. Yeah.
Oh no, I was just saying in theaters. It went into 1,800 theaters and it averaged per screen $6,954.
Wow.
Get your
So-
inflation calculator out now. Yeah.
Yeah, and so if you look at those numbers now, imagine what that would be, and think about how few theaters.
Basically,
there were.
what MAD Web made.
Well, yeah, I mean, look, this film, and that's 93 and that
Maybe
is
more, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, and that is a basically a 5-day week. I mean, it was insane. You look at the re-releases from 1983 all the way through the end of 93, that 10-year period, and this number tracks it in throughout those several dates. It was over $100 million if you combine them all together. This film, just looking at this Turning Red film, you think that's going to make $100 million? And it's re-released to theaters, no matter even if they gave it a decade, would it get there? Probably not. It's insane. When I look at these numbers and I go through them all, there is no way for Disney, as it's currently constituted in animation, to ameliorate this problem. It isn't possible. It's unfixable.
Well, they've done it to themselves, and this is where I was trying to say where Chris's expose actually gets you into this, because he said it right in there. These kids don't know the Disney classics.
No.
And I think I understand the problem of where that comes from. And it is partially the vault system that Chris was talking about.
Yeah.
They quit doing that with DVD. Okay,
Yeah.
what generation are we in now? The generation that grew up on DVD, didn't have home video, didn't have these big releases every 5 to 7 years of Disney movies in theaters when they would get re-released from the vaults. Right? And I agree with you, Chris. I've said it time and time and time again. This is their 100th anniversary. They should be releasing 2 of the Disney classics completely restored every single month with huge fanfare.
Yes.
And they're not doing it. What is wrong with them? And then going back to, and that's the thing, is these kids don't watch these movies. They don't get them. And this is why the kids went to see The Dark Knight in theaters, because guess what? They don't have that DVD at home, Chris. They don't have DVDs and Blu-rays anymore. They are back at the whim like we were. Either you got to go to your streaming service and find which fucking streaming service it is on anymore, or you're like we were at the whim back in the day and just hope you catch it at some point on television, right? That's where we're at right now. These kids have no sense of the history of film because they haven't watched it for the last 20, 30 years. They don't care anymore.
You know why they won't put these back in theaters is because the theater owners don't want you to put a disclaimer in front of your own movie that tells people that it's a horrible product you should never watch.
Well, this
trigger warning. Oh God, I hate
this.
Those.
This all comes back to Disney hating Disney. The 100th anniversary, they didn't have a single bio movie, anything. There was nothing celebrating Walt. Like this is so unbelievably impossible to have imagined that a corporate entity would not, dig into their own underwear and pull up old shit just for the sake of money is like nonsense. That's how infested Disney is that they can't even bear themselves. They can't come to just celebrating Walt Disney's legacy in some ways. I don't get it. It was the dumbest year ever.
That's an understatement. You can't celebrate the white man who created this company and built an industry and built this multi-billion-dollar company in theme parks and everything. You can't celebrate it. It's such a profound lack of leadership.
Yes, it is leadership.
It's mind-boggling to see the stupidity at which the Disney brand has been driven into the ground, and they did it. They played themselves as
I am seeing more and more, and I won't repeat the stories. Companies are being run by the flying monkeys that work there, and management is scared to death of them.
That's exactly the way it was described to Alan and I.
Yep.
It's like the people at the bottom, they're running the asylum.
Yes,
yep.
Correct.
They've allowed it to happen. And the thing is it used to be, sometimes you have to fire people as an example. This person does, they're the weakest in the litter. They don't pull their weight. You got to fire them. And it's a way for everyone to kind of like, oops, I better work harder. Or that's going to be me. And that doesn't happen. There's a fear when it comes to hiring or firing certain types of people that you'll be called names and certain things for people that aren't pulling their weight. It's bringing the entire industry down. It's really unconscionable. And I know that like Alan was really like upset about all this stuff, like having to do with, with Walt Disney, because he's such a Disney historian. You should ask him directly. But
So Chris, what do you think's going on then with the disconnect? Because you see something, I see something, this panel sees something, the audience sees something. Clearly, Main Street sees something wrong with this company. Otherwise, you wouldn't see stagnation at best of the subscriber numbers. You wouldn't see the decimation of the Disney box office. And yet, Wall Street seems to be totally on board. I have my thoughts on it, but I'm curious what your thoughts are on the Wall Street effect of the Disney stock going up and where we are for the future of this company.
I don't know. I think it's going to continue to go down the toilet. I really don't see any major, unless you do an Elon Musk style buying Twitter and firing 2/3 of your staff. I don't see anything changing. I see them potentially selling off pieces of the business. Maybe they'll sell off Star Wars or Marvel or something. Who knows? They'll figure something out, or pieces of it, right? Like Sony having Spiderman. Who knows? But it's not gonna get. I don't see it getting better from a content standpoint. I just see other things supplanting it, other things coming up in its place.
Well, I know we're getting limited on some time here with a few of our panelists, so I want to start getting into some of these super chats before we get too late in the show here. On the point of Madam Web, Shadow Dancer, the Red Mage sends in $10 and says, "Saw Madam Web. It's not merely anti-men; it's anti-family altogether. No heroes, and the characters cause a chaos, a rise of supervillains origin story, and the mother's name Charlotte Webb, LMAO." Yeah. So there you go. Marksman117B sends in 2 and says, any interest in Adam Sandler's upcoming Spaceman? Yeah, there's been some talk about this.
Yeah, he
I
looks
saw the
wonderfully
trailer.
haggard.
It looks weird. The
Yeah.
spider, and he misses his wife, and I don't know.
It's kind of like Moon.
Yeah, little of that, but it looks. I'll see it though.
I think the
100%.
problem is everybody is confused on whether or not it's supposed to be a comedy, a drama, a horror, what, and it might be all three, and that might be a problem too.
Right.
And then we got Action Com who says Midnight's Edge sneakers. When? Well, I would love to have some Midnight's
High
Edge
tops.
sneakers. Sure, kicks.
Yeah.
Let's do it. Dr. Long Dongler's been here for 27 months. Thank you so much for your support. Then he sends in a super chat for £5. Says working 12 hours all week, so missing the live shows yet again. Catch you on the replay. Hit the thumbs up and like and share.
There's a
and all
thing
good
that
stuff.
happens
And
when you're editing something, and that is you start liking what it is that you're editing, even if it's crappy. You kind of understand it in a ways that maybe other people don't. But I can't imagine half the movies that I've seen lately, any editor enjoying what they've edited.
No. Well, there is like this Munchausen syndrome kind of thing.
Yes,
like,
there is.
I noticed this when I worked in radio because there was a lot of songs that I would never listen to, or I hated the artist or whatever. But then after a while, you start finding yourself either. I think it's more of an acceptance than a liking.
Yeah.
It's like, so then after a point, you just get used to it. So it's like, yeah,
Stockholm syndrome is more like it than
Stockholm.
basically.
That's what I was trying to think. Stockholm. Thank you
Yeah.
for correcting me. Yes.
Yeah.
Like
Munchausen's where you think that you make somebody think they're sick all the time. That's right. Yeah.
That's
Sorry, I
hypochondria.
messed it up. No, you make somebody think, isn't it? Or what's
No,
what
that's
I'm
you.
thinking of?
That basically you have illusions of grandeur. I think.
I don't know. I'm all fucked up.
You insist someone else is sick or yourself, so you will gain the benefit.
That's what I was thinking.
Of the sorrow of and empathy of a medical establishment and the people around you.
Yeah,
You
that's what I
pretend you
thought.
have cancer, or you pretend your kid. Worse off, you pretend your kid has cancer, and you start.
Yeah, that's actually called
yes.
by proxy. That's Munchausen's by
Yeah.
proxy when you assign it.
That's
to
what I
another.
was trying to. Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I
No,
was.
the Stockholm syndrome is that's
Stockholm's the one I was looking for.
Yep.
There we go. Neil has been here for 20 months. Thank you for that. And Kenneth the Rock has been here for 30 months. Holy crap. Thank you for that. STR Rodwolf says, Hail all Andre. Have you heard of Black Coffee Worship, a coffee company in the UK subscribing to heavy metal values? Seems up your alley.
yes, I have heard of them.
I have also heard. Yeah, I have vaguely heard of them. I haven't been there, but I'm not a big coffee drinker, if I'm completely honest. So they may be as heavy metal as you want. I think more could be achieved if you had a heavy metal brewery, but coffee brewery, yeah, sure, why not?
What percentage of the human body is water? Is it like 70%?
I think
More,
it's more
more.
than that. It's like
Because
80, 90-ish or something.
Whatever that percent is, that's what I am of coffee. I'm
Right,
fairly
there
certain.
you go. Yeah. Okay.
Well, we were in
You need
South
to go check out some
Carolina.
heavy metal coffee.
We were in South Carolina, and there was a shop along one of the tourist areas that sold coffee that was roasted and made by ex-American military, and every bit of profit went to the guys with no legs and who fought for America. And I thought,
Lieutenant Dan's Java Beans.
that was pretty good. They did a great job of promoting that stuff, and the coffee was good, I have to say.
Yeah, good, perfect. Nothing's better than that.
Coffee for a
Much
good
of a
cause,
coffee person.
not Jeremy.
Maybe I'll check it out next time I'm in London. But I'm in a greater hurry to go to Switzerland than to go to one of the Giger cafes. That would be, or Giger bars. That'd be
Whoa.
awesome.
Oh, is it filled with Giger's artwork?
Yes, that's the whole point.
Wow, that's kind of like a sports bar, but for freaks.
Kind of, yeah. But I would love to go check out all of the alien stuff. I mean, I'm sure that Chris Gore would love to check out the Giger bar as well if you had the opportunity.
I love HR Giger.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
And the coffee is served to you from the wall on the mandibles of one of the aliens as it comes out. And would you like
that
some
real?
coffee?
Probably. Well, I wouldn't be surprised. Only it wouldn't be from the mandibles. It would be from something else. That would be more enhanced through this style. So, yeah.
The animatronic extended internal jaw section of
Yeah, let's
the
go
alien.
with that.
We got Mikey in the house who sends in $4.99, says we need everyone in the chat today to go to Twitter and at YouTube today and retweet like cray cray. Yeah,
Yes.
we put out posts, pros put out posts. Do everything you can to try and get YouTube's attention. That's pretty much the only way you can get any attention these days. Chipmunk of Vengeance has been a member for 2 months, and he needs some vengeance. Michael or Michelle, see, I'm so sorry, Michelle, has become a new member. Thank you for that.
Michelle is fantastic.
Indeed. We have Libra Wolf here, who's been here for 9 months. It's now a baby. And then Michelle C sends in a $2 super chat and says, I thought I was a member. Well, I fixed that. Well, thank you. Maybe you are on Midnight's Edge after dark. See, that's the thing. And this is the thing I got to constantly remind people of. And this is why the sister channel just kind of sits there and people forget it exists. So, yeah.
I think your confusion was that only men have members.
That's true. And then we got Paco Sith, who sends in $2. Says, Demonetized, Disney is aware and watching. Good job, Pro. Well, I mean, Andre likes to say never, never put malice where...
Never attribute to malice
that's it.
what can be explained by incompetence. But sometimes there comes a point where a coincidence is more than a coincidence. And
I think
I don't know exactly where that thing goes.
I think later on we may get to discuss that much later on. We're discussing that, I guess, in the private side of things. So we'll see, folks, if we can talk a little bit more about what might have happened.
Yeah, that would be a Rumble exclusive if we get to that.
Yes,
exactly.
And then let's see here. What do we got? We got Hyperguyver 2, who says the problem with Stuckmann is he sold his credit for accessibility and then proceeded to pander to the Rainbow Brigade. Yeah, you got that problem sometimes. Yeah. And then we've got, let's see here, Black Wolf Inc., who's been a member for 19 months. Thank you for that. It says, just one question for Chris Gore. How many megaton nukes have you been given since you have been given the receipts from the Secret Society of Sanity in Hollywood? Also, Olivia Munn is still smoking hot.
Well, I can't disagree with the last statement. In terms of receipts, Alan and I can only, we can say publicly what you see in the D files. It's far worse than you could possibly imagine. It is really just a rot from within the company that they've allowed to take hold like a cancer. And I think it's a cancer that may not be fixable.
That was going to be my question. Do you see any kind of possible solution to it? What do you see any kind of positive movements at all?
Fire everybody, or make a whole, gut some of these divisions, or allow them to go under as a warning to some of the other companies. I think I don't see how it's fixable, to be honest. You've just brought in, it's the culture, and the culture is the people working there. What do? We'll just fire them all, I guess. And moving these operations, they're not moving it, but they're just basically, the operation in Canada is basically doing Moana 2. Okay. So that's sort of punishment for Wish bombing.
Chris, what do you think about that real quick? Because I'm amazed that Disney is taking their most popular princess franchise they have. In fact, it's their most popular movie, period, right now. It's the #1 streaming movie of the year for 2023, and it was made in 2016. Mm-hmm. And rather than what you would anticipate, which is, given that probably has a potential $1.5 billion box office haul for a sequel if you do it right, the way they're doing that is to rush this thing. They don't even have the voice artist signed still, is my understanding. And it's supposed to come out in November. It's been handed to a director who has never made a theatrical release. Mm-hmm. It's been handed to a studio which has never had a theatrical release. What do you make of that idea that they're going in that direction that quickly for the sequel?
Well, I don't think it's. All I can say is this: I think that's a minor adjustment that they can make. However, it's not as if you're going to go to the people that are in Canada and it's going to be any less of a problem. If anything, Canada is even more sort of infected with wokeness, the woke mind virus, so to speak, than here in Burbank, right? Paul,
what do you think the time span is?
Right, and BC is terrible. BC is Canada's Portland.
Ooh. What's the time span, though, Chris? Because this thing's going to come out in November, right? Our understanding is they don't have the voice artist signed. As of last week, they didn't have Dwayne Johnson signed yet. They didn't have Ali Ikravallo signed yet, and she was supposed to be more difficult to get signed. She's the voice artist behind Moana. You're talking about releasing a full-fledged CGI theatrical release by November. Like, when does that have to be done when you're talking about animation in order to have it ready for translating the songs and doing, the 30 different versions of this? It'll be provided all over the world.
It doesn't matter. They have a lot of money. So they're just going to spend to make it happen. They have a release date. It will come out on the release date. Good or
Agreed,
bad.
yes. But the quality, do you think we get another Wish situation where you go and you sit down and you go, this doesn't look like the original Moana. I can see the keyframes. The animation's terrible. Do you think that's a fear?
Well, I just think it's the reality of what they're stuck with. And it's really because, I was talking on another stream about the making of Godzilla -1. There's a short 6-minute documentary on the Toho Godzilla channel. You should watch it. The director explains very explicitly how they were able to make Godzilla -1 so cheaply. They got rid of all the middle management. He literally shows a hand-drawn graphic of here's the director, here's the VFX artist, and there's all these in-between people. He takes a piece of paper and folds it in. It's a great visual representation of what's wrong with Hollywood. Walt Disney built a system to make not just great mainstream entertainment, but art. And that system is broken and it's been infected by activists. Fire them all.
Yeah.
And you need to rebuild a system where people are more directly involved. I happen to know Denis Villeneuve is directly involved with all of the people who are doing the things. Why do you think the VFX in Dune are so good? It's not like it's farmed out. It's not like there's the director, the director of Madam Web, I'm just doing the thing. And then there's all these other layers of approval and supervision and all that. You don't need it. When the director works direct, that's the only stamp of approval you need is the director. That's why other directors work that way. For example, Christopher Nolan, who will only James Cameron, they will only use digital effects if that's the only way to achieve an effect. But Nolan's a big fan of bigatures. I'm not sure if you're aware, but he's which is large size miniatures.
Well, and to be fair, not everybody's Nolan to where they can take that kind of reign of control either. Sometimes you're at the whim of, I don't know, Kevin Feige, deciding how many different.
Or you're like James Gunn, and it's just I'm just going to make the movie I want to make, and I just don't care what you're going to do. Fire me.
One of the problems of having layers of management is that if you're a layer, you've got to justify your existence, so you make a decision, even when you should just shut up. That's part of the problem. I've experienced that where I call it flexing. I don't know what you still call it, but back in the 90s, we called it flexing, where someone would just say something because they had a cake hole and they could open it and they could shove cake in it. So that's we called that flexing. They walk
flexing
in,
and offloading. You also gotta throw the blame that could come your way to somebody else too. Always make sure
there's that too. So it's again, as Chris said, when you've got all those layers, people have to justify their jobs, so they flex.
Well, speaking of flexing, I think this is the opposite of a flex as far as the box office goes. I don't know if you guys saw this morning.
No.
A major theater chain insider says that they could see Madam Web advanced purchase sales declining in real time as buyers were refunding their tickets on opening night. And this comes via Hollywood Reporter.
Oh my God.
See, that's what I'm saying. Someone has it in for this movie because no one is trying to protect it in any way, shape, or form whatsoever. It's as if the industry, in a sense, is taking delight in its downfall.
Well, and I hope they learn the right lessons. And this is what I was getting to earlier. I think Tom Rothman's one of the only guys who can go, yep, this shit ain't working. We ain't doing that no more.
Well, and Disney actually had a savior plan. They executed it. Disney Animation was not doing well. They bought Pixar. Pixar was intended to take it all over, headed by John Lasseter. I don't think that plan is available again. There is no other studio that they could buy that would allow them to do it. So they did have a plan. They did execute it, but then they executed the
entire industry. In my estimation, that they damaged the entire animation industry.
Well, not just the animation. That's what I was saying earlier about Chris's expose. That's across the board, I think. It's not just in animation. I bet you that there's in every other corner of this industry, you're going to see the same exact thing, pretty much. ActionCom has one here for Chris for $10. Thank you so much. It says, what was the best movie review you ever read? Mine was Roger Ebert's Good Morning Vietnam. You noticed things I didn't, like how Robin arrived a slob but left a soldier, showing character growth.
Yeah,
So what's your favorite review you've ever read?
Oh man, I think I mentioned earlier Rod Lurie.
Yeah.
Did I mention Rod Lurie? Yes.
Yes, you did.
Rod Lurie, who I used to love his reviews because he was so biting. He was so biting, and I love that. Like you said, he described Danny DeVito as the Penguin is looking like a pair of shaved testicles. And I still quote that review. There's a critic that you remember, and I remember his review of RoboCop 2. He said, this movie made me nuts and I wanted to bolt. And that was, I'm forgetting his name. He was on the morning, one of those morning shows, and he had like a big
Gene Shalit.
Was it Gene Shalit?
Yes.
Yeah. This movie made me nuts and I wanted to bolt. It was his review of RoboCop 2. So I don't know. I don't know if I have. I mean, like I loved reading like Pauline Kael. There's a documentary about her that is fantastic. And I used to love reading her critiques because I didn't understand it as a kid, but it made me want to learn more. So it was I always used to love Pauline Kael's stuff. I remember she famously hated Star Wars.
Yes.
So,
my two favorite reviewers of all time are Rex Reed and Harlan Ellison.
Oh, Harlan Ellison was great. He was just vicious, but I loved it. He was right.
He was right.
He was right a lot of the time. He was just like so right. Like, you know, so I don't know. Like, I don't have this weird hate toward critics. I look, it's like, oh, that's your opinion. It's your opinion. But like, and so it's like, whatever. Like, so I don't know how people get offended by some of these opinions. And this guy, Joe Russo, was upset about the fact that, you know, people were mocking Stuckmann for basically saying, I'm not going to crap on this movie. That goes for every movie. So just don't do that job anymore. But don't sit here and tell me it's hard, because I'll tell you it isn't. If you're willing to put in the work, any one of us on this stream or anyone watching can make a movie. You know, I've done it a bunch of times. It's not that hard. And in particular, it's really easy when you have Sony money or Marvel money. You put
then you have no excuse.
There's no qualification for producer or director. There isn't.
Yeah.
You sit in the chair, you have all these people who actually need to know stuff that are at your beck and call, and you're just telling them what to do. Now,
I don't know why, but I enjoy the written reviews where you can tell the person suffered having to watch the film.
Right.
I would recommend people go check out, I think it was the New York Times. Go read the New York Times review of Rainbow Bride and the Star Stealer from back in the 80s. That's a real joy to watch. Somebody had to actually, sit through that.
You know who has the hard job is in television, at least we call them the line producer.
Yeah.
And they are the most valuable person, unsung individual in the entire industry, where they do everything, the contracts, talking to actors that have gone off the rails, everything. You just walk in and basically do the parts that you're supposed to do. But if you've got a brilliant line producer, they have literally made the entire thing.
Yeah. And I think the two things that kind of explain criticism and filmmaking the best from the critic's point of view are the scene from History of the World, where you have with art came the art critic, where, the guy draws on the wall and the critic comes and pisses on it. And then the other one is they're missing, and I wish they had it in Monty Python's and the Meaning of Life, where they go, this is the middle of the movie, fishy, 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 all that weird shit. Be like, and this is what watching modern fucking art is like sometimes for the critic, right? Because sometimes you get these people who think they're so pretentious and great at everything when they're not. You're literally just making garbage and throwing it on the screen. I think Madam Web's a great example of that. But we're also losing Pro and along with Chris, So we got this one from Rod Thunderhard, who sends in Canadian tenants says, "Hail, WDW Pro is 100% correct. As a truck driver, if you've had a whoopsie, it doesn't work out that way. You must deliver the product when it's supposed to be delivered. It doesn't work that way." Exactly. Thank
you
you,
also
Rod.
have a GPS tracker on your truck.
Oh, if you're smart, you know how to use it. Yeah.
Well, no, I mean,
John,
no. The company that hired you
Oh,
have
gotcha,
stuck a
gotcha.
GPS on your truck. They
oh
know
yeah,
where you
GPS
are.
tracker. Gotcha. Not
That's
like
what Disney has for Rachel Zegler's social media account.
Yeah. Oh, John Thomas sends in tennis says, "Pro, I delivered the wrong location. It was not pretty. LOL. But everything in society goes back to participation trophy culture and parents in the 90s and 2000s not pushing back." Yes.
It's a
I
great,
believe
yes, it's
that's
a great lesson to be learned about the ramifications of that idea.
and I
So,
believe that's it for you two gentlemen. So if you two have to make your exit, now is the time.
well, before I go, let me just say, folks, hopefully I'll be able to come back in a few. I've got a meeting to go to, but it would be a great help out there if everybody could join in tomorrow on the YouTube channel, That Part Place, Pro's new bunker. And we'll be doing a special live stream tomorrow at noon Eastern time on That Part Place called Amateur Hour with Pro, now that this demonetization has hit. So come join us over there for some fun, and we'll keep trudging forward. All right. Thank you guys so
Awesome.
much for having me, and hopefully I'll get back in just a few.
Yeah, if you get back
Yeah,
in
we
a
hope
few,
to
just
have
so you
you.
guys know, we're gonna jump over to Rumble and talk a little bit about why we think Pro was monetized, if there's a
It's
reason
spicy.
other than just the
Bro.
algorithm.
Guys.
Careful.
And Chris as well. Check out Film Threat and their great exposés as of
my
late have been
gosh.
amazing. Can't wait for more.
There's more
Anything else you
coming.
want to plug?
There's more coming, or even looking at starting a new series. We have the D Files. We're talking about starting a new series that'll just be about tales from the world of DEI in entertainment. And
It's such a huge topic because like we've been also covering it for 2 years now. ESG and the DEI and the DEI. That's just the S part of ESG. It's far bigger than that.
what we're getting personal stories from people who haven't worked, or people who've been pushed out of their positions, or people that are having to deal with inexperience and like having to just like the specific stories we're getting. So what we want to do is just do a series of stories from different parts of the industry and people working in the industry telling their own stories about all of this. So it would be an ongoing series that we would run. So we've got we've just the spicy stuff we're getting is pretty incredible. And I have a big announcement. Film Threat is launching a third weekly live stream starting today.
Oh,
So Hollywood on the Rocks is on Wednesdays. The Film Threat Friday live cast is on Fridays and Monday. Prepare for Versus. Versus is our new group show. We've got tonight, we've got Dante James, a Verbal Riot show, Paulie from Latino Slant, my buddy Ramesh Iyer, Kira Lynn, Baggage Claim, Max Von Priestley, an amazing lineup. It's our group show. I know that's a big, so Alan and I have talked about doing one for a long time, and we're excited. So today, 3 p.m. Pacific time, 6 p.m. Eastern, tune in for Versus. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to talk about the Stuckmann stuff, talk about MEitM Web. We're going to hear what women have to say about MEitM Web from some women. We actually have women on the show. So,
you sure you shouldn't call it Monday Night Threats?
Monday Night Threats. I don't know. Versus is just our working name. We were going to call it Monday. I don't know what to call it. We're just for right now.
Monday Night Threats. Think about it.
It's all right. MNT. Yeah, exactly. I don't want to get in trouble with Gary. But it's like, look, it's a panel show. It's going to be fun. So you get like more than just the opinion of Alan and I, and we'll have rotating regulars and just people that maybe you don't see on streams all that often. So it's going to be a lot of fun, some different perspectives. So can't wait. So please tune in for the first episode, because I have a treat. That is going to blow people's minds. That we're going to kick off the show. But thank you. I will see you next month.
Speaking of treats,
Yeah.
Twilight Hope, who's been a member for 19 months, says, "I heard the word flex by anime YouTuber to describe showing off or exaggerating accomplishments of an OP character.
Yeah.
He says, "Good luck, film treat." I think he means threat, but I
Close
think that's
enough.
kind of
I'll
funny considering you just said you had a treat.
I did have a treat.
So it's
Well, there you
like
go.
lining up of stars there.
He's
So
got a
there you go.
van that he parks
you
at
go.
schools that goes, "Hey, would you like a film treat?"
Yeah.
Wanna
But
come watch a movie?
Yeah.
it's a rare thing I get to be on camera, but I'm having some computer issues, so I'm on camera. That's
We're
weird.
glad to have you here.
But but I'll see you next Monday. Everybody take care.
See you,
Later.
Chris.
Later.
Peace.
Take care.
All right, and then back to the top. We got STR Red Wolf here with $5 who says it's similar with writing novels. Terry Pratchett did 200 words a day, did short scenes on my train ride from and to work every day. A year later, I made my novel, Throng, going to station. You got time, go write better stuff. Plug Rod Thunderheart's novel as well. Yes, and I believe he's working on some sequels. Rod is See Through Love. So check that out. And we got Titties in the house who sends in 35 South African rands who says, are we at a point where firing creatives mid-creation needs to be on the table? Madam Web could have been put on brief hold to fix the mess as an example. Honestly, unless there was something contractually keeping that thing in play, I would have put that in the tax pile.
It should never have been started. That's the thing. It should never have been initiated because there was never a story. It was always the absolute bottom of the barrel of characters. So they never should have started it. And I agree completely. That was a tax write-off right there.
Yeah, you're right. They almost started it like from the wrong end, right? It's like we want a female superhero team movie. Well, what's it going to be about? We don't know, but it has to be related to Spider-Man. that's how this meeting started. Yeah.
That was it. That was the pitch. We want here's the Spider-Man license. Now give us some women and give us a female team and a female-centric story.
And then they turned in a script that had like Aunt May and Peter, baby Peter, and all that stuff. And they're like, you can't use Aunt May and you can't use baby Peter. Well, as long as you don't name them, then you can use them. See, and this is where I think people are confused because people are like, but doesn't Sony own Spider-Man? No, they don't own shit. They license the film rights. Okay, so under those film rights, they have all these ancillary characters that are involved in that. So go ahead, Andre, from there.
Yeah, no, and they don't even own the film rights. What they have is that they have the exclusive film rights, but Marvel can't take them back. Not until Sony allows them to go back, which means that they're kind of like in this interesting state of affairs where no one fully owns them because Marvel owns them but can't use them. And Sony can use them, but they don't own them, and they have to use them in order to be able to continue to use them, if that makes sense. That's kind of how it is.
And Marvel actually owns all the toy, animation, video game rights, and most of the television rights. Most of the television rights. There's a little finagle in there, but yeah. Like Sony has to make like an hour-long TV movie basically to get away with it. Yeah. But I'm surprised they haven't taken advantage of that in the days of streaming, to be honest with you.
That was a fantastic situation.
Yeah. Chaos Sonic 1 says with $5, Disney and now Jimmy Kimmel are being sued. Seems like karma finally comes to the Schadenfreude is real. People, the pendulum sling is coming for these jerks. Well, I hope you're right, Chaos. And I saw you dropped a video on this morning, Culture. I didn't actually get to watch the video. So if you want to
Culture, can you take us through this? What's going on with Jimmy Kimmel?
All right. What happened with that?
Well, okay, so there is a service called Cameo where you can hire your favorite celebrity or influencer to give you a personalized message. So let's say you like somebody like Paul Chato, and Paul Chato is a provider over there on Cameo. You can request that he say happy birthday to you or something like that, some kind of message, like good luck on your surgery, or whatever. So,
for instance, this is where we learned that Ernie Hudson was coming back to Ghostbusters because he had actually dropped it in a Cameo birthday wish.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people on this, and even some people that we know, like I think Heels versus Babyface was in there, Az was in there, and maybe a few other people that you would know. But to that end, So this politician, who's not very popular here in the United States, he was kind of a criminal, committed fraud, all kinds of things. His name's George Santos, right? And so he gets ousted from his gig, and so he starts up this Cameo thing. Well, Jimmy Kimmel thought it would be a good idea to use the personal license version of these Cameo requests from fake accounts, not representing himself as himself, to run a bit on his show called "Will Santos Say It?" or something. Now, the only problem with what Jimmy Kimmel did that I have been able to find and confirm with a couple of people who would know is that he, instead of going after a commercially licensed version of these messages, he used the personal license, which explicitly says in the terms of service for Cameo cannot be used for commercial purposes. So the fact that Kimmel broadcast these things on his show, which I don't think anybody could argue that's not a commercial enterprise, since they literally run commercials on his show, amongst other things, it's done for profit. He basically ran these bits with getting George Santos to say ridiculous stuff via the Cameo. So, because Jimmy Kimmel is an employee of Disney, and through their studios, and Disney is involved and is responsible for the stuff that Kimmel puts on his show, Jimmy Kimmel is being sued by George Santos for misrepresenting him and all of these other things. So it's an interesting thought that, Jimmy Kimmel actually joked on his show. This is the last thing I'll mention about this. He joked on his show that wouldn't it be funny if George Santos sued me? So he demonstrating that he's self-aware enough to know that what he was doing could be a real problem for himself and his bosses at Disney. Well done, Jimmy Kimmel.
Yeah, don't they have a legal department?
Yeah, that was what I was going to ask. Yeah.
When that asshole, and I will refer to that propagandist as an asshole because that's all I consider him as. I used to like him at one point in time, but no more. So anyway, that asshole and all the other assholes just like him, his fellow propagandists, when they did this stupid, embarrassing podcast that I meant to review, but I never got around to it because it was so painful and embarrassing to listen to this podcast about them talking about themselves and
the
their
show hosts,
glorious lives and stuff like that. That this thing was still incredibly produced. It wasn't any on-the-cuff legit thing or something like that. There were many cuts and everything where the lawyers obviously had to clear something. So I'm surprised that they obviously have lawyers. How did the lawyers let this pass?
I can't answer any of that because normally you would end up with everything getting run past legal. I think Tom would even say that, and the former network executive down here would probably agree that this should have gone by legal before it went on the air. They should have at least taken a cursory glance at the terms of service for Cameo, which is, you're signing a contract there saying that you don't intend to use this for commercial purposes, et cetera, et cetera. So look, I can't explain why this happened, but I can only explain that despite the fact that a lot of people in my comments of the video don't think there's any case here, I'm like,
so who's actually suing Jimmy? And is it Cameo or is it?
No, George Santos is suing Jimmy Kimmel because of the violation of the terms of service of the cameos that he ordered.
Yeah, see, that's where I'm wondering if George actually has any place to stand on that outside of any kind of possible.
Sounds like he does, because again,
he may, but I was thinking more Cameo would for the. But anyway, go ahead.
I imagine that Cameo will end up being a party to this in some way. And again, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not even pretending to be one. But this is one of those clear-cut cases where Kimmel violated the terms of service. And as part of that contract, and I haven't read through it in its entirety, I'll be perfectly blunt about that. If it says explicitly you're not allowed to use it for a commercial purpose, and you use it for a commercial purpose, you have legal culpability there. So
not only that, I don't know if this is part of it, but it's explicitly done in bad faith.
Well,
it wasn't a legit thing. It was something that they made just to humiliate him and put on TV without informing.
And that's where I
him.
was thinking he had more of a grounds for maybe some kind of defamation case. But now that you guys are saying it this way, it makes more sense. Yeah, I see where you're coming from. Yeah.
Fraud is the other thing that's being claimed, and unjust enrichment, which I was like, is that a real thing? Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's where you make
related to fraud, I should imagine.
Yeah, it's where you make money off of something because of your ne'er-do-wellness or whatever the word I'm looking for. Yeah, whatever the word is. You're fucking with them and you're using that to your advantage. Yeah, this is a kind of a interesting case. I could see this being making its way to court at least. I don't see it getting tossed out after you guys just explained it to me this way, because yeah, that's it goes beyond just like a violation of the terms of service. It's how it's being used, right? It's a manipulation of, and that's where the monetary gain comes in, because yeah, Jimmy Kimmel gets paid by advertisers to do his show. He uses this shit on his show. This is what, again, where I was jumping in right away with you, Andre, like, where was legal on this?
Yeah, I don't know.
Like, this is a big, like, if I was I would be firing a bunch of people in the legal department too on top of it for this shit, for allowing this to happen. If it even went through, if it didn't go, unless it didn't go through legal, is what I'm saying. But like, how could you look at this and go, yeah, you shouldn't have a problem with this? Like, I don't even see how that's a thing. Like, how you could do that. I mean, it's one thing when Jimmy asks you to send in videos of like you pranking your kids and stuff like that. That's, you basically, if you don't read the legalese, it is what it is. It says you send in this video, it will be shown on the show. You don't have any right to any monetary value, blah, 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 all that kind of bullshit. But if you're using Cameo, that's a little different. So I can see what you're saying there, guys. But anyway, thanks for the super chat, Chaos. And I don't know if Paul had anything to add or subtract from that being for television, but
I have nothing.
Yeah.
Really? Didn't
Nothing
they have? Didn't they have a legal department that
I was going to say
run stuff by?
Oh, I just ignored it.
Oh, okay.
Well, knowing that makes a lot of sense, actually.
That's what Kimmel did too. So you have something in common there.
I just don't know why he's slumming doing this silly little voice work for a couple of bucks. Like,
yeah, this is like radio type.
Well, honestly,
jokes. I mean, this is low level stuff, to be honest.
Honestly, his rates were $405. It was $400, and then over time he increased it to $500.
Yeah, but does he really need the money?
I don't know.
I mean, it just gets so stupid. I think in CNBC's coverage of this, or no, actually, it was NBC proper. I think in their coverage of it, they actually said that his Cameo income more than surpassed his government income.
So I can, if he charges like $400 and $500 per
recording
Cameo video, it's not going to take that many Cameo videos a month before it surpasses a regular salary.
You'd be surprised how many celebrities are on there too. Like, it must be pretty. And really, how long does it take you to do these? You sit down for an hour and you record a bunch of little videos, and then you made 10 grand. It's the same reason a lot of these guys go to a lot of the comic book conventions and stuff too, is because they know they can make mint on selling, $20 pictures and then charging you $45 to have you sign it.
Yeah, it's kind of like the human ringtone or something. I can see it. I mean, if someone asked me to do it as Mr. Canoehead or something like that, I'd probably be very, I'd be very chuffed by that. But it just seems weird. These people don't need money. Maybe there's a promotional side of it that they're convinced that, that there is some promotion to their that makes them more famous. I don't know.
I actually like Cameo for what it is. Now, I think some of the people charge a little too much, but hey, it is what it is. And I mean, it's kind of neat to have somebody make a video for you.
Sure. Hey, this is the Rock.
Anniversary. Yeah,
this is the Rock, and happy anniversary, Pat and Nikki. Have a great time.
Yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things. I don't have a problem with Cameo, but I can see the problem with using it. But we need to move on here because we got some more super chats anyway. Pilgrim Media says with $2, those ladies can't act, but they looked good. Did they look good in the movie though?
No.
Look, all 4 of the ladies that were in the film are what people would consider classically attractive. They obviously Dakota is a little bit older than the other ladies. The other ladies are in their 20s and they're playing high school kids. So the reason that I kept saying that the theme of the film was compressions was because of compression garments, probably, and also because there was a lot of CPR.
And it did come out that I believe what's her face, the one with the biggest boobs, had like this compression outfit on underneath. Yeah, I seen pictures.
This was basically Compressions, the movie.
Sports bra kind of thing, but like very padded down or whatever.
Yeah, and what's really a bummer
strapped down, not padded,
is that she was actually insistent that they let her suit up as the character that she's playing that is in the comics books and hang upside down and descend from the ceiling and do a bunch of things. And most of that wasn't even in the film, according to people that would know. So, but she did an interview saying that was the best part and she really wanted it to be there. It's a real bummer. Like I said, this is a superhero film with zero superheroes. You have a sort of a super villain, and you have, whatever else was going on there. There wasn't a lot to like about Madam Web, other than maybe it was under 2 hours.
Because it goes against, though, anything that any woman that would be interested in superhero movies would like anyway. Because that's what they keep forgetting, is that they want to see the same kind of stuff if they're a fan of this stuff that we like, right? So at the end of the day, it makes no sense to make a superhero movie or a Star Wars movie, something like that, directed directly at women, because that's not what they're interested in. They want the full package. They don't want something that's just like at least in my understanding, Six can definitely come in and correct me if I'm wrong, but I would think on her, like, she wants a superhero movie, like a superhero movie, right? Like,
it makes about as much sense to do that as to make a male geared Barbie movie.
Even the rom-coms have women in bathing suits, bikinis, and the guys, topless. It's just part of rom-com. So not that I'm a knowledgeable scribe when it comes to just what women are attracted to. Superhero movies, again, we've talked about it. It's tends to be a guy thing. There wasn't a lot of gear porn in Madam Web, or any kind of porn at all. None of them had OnlyFans accounts, so I didn't understand the concept of the movie.
Oh, you checked? I didn't.
Yeah, I checked all of them.
But speaking of checking, I
did check a golfer I watched. I'm going, okay, she's kind of lets things hang out on all her golf stuff.
She would have been better off doing Cameo. Is that what you're saying?
No, I don't know. She was pretty good. So you know what? I'm gonna look her up. And said, oh, who's she? Oh, look at that on the list. She's actually got an OnlyFans account. Oh, great.
Oh, interesting.
So she supplements her how-to golfing videos with OnlyFans.
Yeah,
this is the world. This is the world we live in, Tom. You could have your own OnlyFans account too to supplement what you're doing here.
Don't get me tempted. If I think anybody actually wants a piece of this meat, 2 inches of tear will go on all day long. You do have to run though, but
I do.
I just want to grab these quick because it actually has to do with what we were just talking about, and I think it'd be funny. DCB Titan says, a legal question, quick, light the mindset signal. Yeah, he probably could have helped us with that question. Then DCB Titan says, a full package. A full bulging package. Yes, the ladies do like a full bulging package usually.
That's right.
But speaking of full bulging packages, your time has come to a full bulging.
I knew you were referring to me. Who else on this panel would you refer to full bulging package but me?
But speaking of OnlyFans, Tipping Barn says for $1.99, how can I subscribe to Culture's Only Void? Wait, what? Only Void.
Oh,
that makes sense now.
Anyway, you know what? If Chris needs a channel name or a show name for today, because whatever he said, Vulture or Voluminous or whatever he said. Versus. Yeah. I think what was the thing that the person just posted? That would have been a better name. Only Void. I like Only Void.
I think I liked your one that you said with the threat in the title, but
Monday Night Threats.
Monday Night Threats,
yeah. I'm just an Only Void.
Needs to move it up a little bit so it's not competing with my ladies, though.
And I'm going to be on Paulie's show later on today.
Sounds good. All right. Anything
Sounds
else
good.
you got to plug besides
No.
Latino Slant this afternoon?
No, I didn't get my video out for today, but it's Monday, holiday, and I don't really care. And I got so much to write. So lots to make fun of. It's never ending.
I'm looking forward to appalling news.
The appalling news I'm working on today. Hopefully I'll get one out later on today. Anyways, thank you very much, everyone. Andre, Culture, Tom, it's always great. Thank you for having me, and we'll see you later, everyone. Bye.
Sounds good.
Excellent. Take care.
And then there were 3.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Let's
Wow.
move on with these super chats and stickers. Jesus Davila sent us a $1.99 super sticker. Let's see if we can see what that is. Otherwise, I'm going to assume that it's a thumbs up, and it means that everyone should smash that like.
Well, we got Jesus on screen. This is a perfect time for me to show this off. Jesus sent this to me in the mail, and I'm probably lucky the cops didn't bust me. No, I'm just kidding. But it's in case of emergency, I got to break the glass. See, those are real and they're sharp as hell.
Nice, very cool.
So thank you, Jesus, for that very, very awesome gift.
Those look stabby.
They're a little stabby.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, but batarangs are supposed to be stabby, I believe.
Yes, they are.
And Olaf says for €6, understood it's Tumblr women they hire who are influencers, no talent. They hope these followers will buy/watch product. This has failed so far. Yes,
Sure.
Indeed. This, of course, is in reference to Film Threads Revelations, which we covered, let's see now, 3 videos ago by my account, where basically the new breed of animators are hired not because they can animate, because they can't, but because they are all social media activists that someone hoped would have a following, and that following would come and check out their movies. And guess what? Their following didn't, and that includes Sydney Sweeney's 20 million person strong following on social media that didn't come out to see MEitM Web this weekend. So yeah, money well spent on influencers. Money well spent right there. Anything you want to add to that, Culture?
I'm just look. I mean, there's a lot of garbage that comes out of the old Tumblr crowd that ends up, in the entertainment business. So this is they've had a losing proposition for a long time because of their ideology creeping past the meritocracy that used to operate in Hollywood. I mean, there was still a lot of nepotism, but none of these new strategies work. Like I said, I mean, 75% of the budget for MEitM Web was dedicated and honed and directed at a demographic of young women, in that group that they're trying to pull into the theaters, and none of them showed up.
Yeah, that's an impressive statistic right there.
Yeah.
Chaos Sonic says for $5, will Disney ever get a win? The answer, when they get rid of Bob ruined legacy Iger and all his wokies, and then undo the damage he did. Well, they may get a temporary one in Deadpool, but I also don't think that there's any long-term win for Disney before they get rid of Iger, who has ruined the company. Or what say you, Culture?
No, I think that the only win is to get Iger and the board. The current board in there is actually the biggest problem. Is they're just a bunch of sycophants, which is how you ended up with Iger returning in the first place. Otherwise,
exactly.
never would happen.
You don't have a board. Disney, as of this right now, they have a board in name only.
Yes,
but it's incapable of functioning like a board because it can't keep it can't have oversight with a CEO who they're buddies with.
Yeah. And again, that's not functional guidance or management, and it hasn't been that way in a long time. They don't set or establish quality metrics to make sure that performance is rewarded and underperformance is punished, and all of the other things that's required. But you talk about failure of top-down leadership that exists throughout Disney. the people that are being eliminated via layoffs are not the people that should be removed from the company. They've got a big problem, and with what happened with Nike today, or I guess this weekend, you lost 1,900 employees, which is about 2% of their workforce. They guess who their chairman of the board is for Nike? It's the same guy that is the executive chairman at Disney. Yeah.
These Nike employees who lost their jobs, where in the world were those jobs cut? What were those people doing?
It's probably not the volunteer labor that they get in China.
I was gonna say that,
yeah.
I guarantee it's all these American and corporate and probably delivery. A lot of the jobs that matter here in the U.S., let's say, not to be dismissive of the other side of it, but yeah, that's
no, because that's kind of like one thing that I do wonder with that. That is, it's easy when you hear like, oh, so and so many jobs were lost. Yeah, but where? For a worldwide company, that makes a big difference. Where and which positions?
Maybe they closed down a bunch of Nike stores, or they dumped a bunch of employees from those, or something. I don't know. There could be another thing too. I mean, there's a lot of. That's your good question. Like, where do you make cuts in a company like Nike? Right? Because most of their production and all that stuff is done overseas. Packaging and certain other things are done here, but otherwise it's mostly like corporate delivery, stuff like that. I mean, so that's probably what was hit. That would be my guess, right? Culture. I mean, that's my understanding of the business.
Say that again.
Most of the manufacturing and all that kind of stuff of these shoes is done out of the country.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, so but that's been the way it is.
Most of the jobs that would have been lost would be stuff within the stores, the shipping, the corporate.
Yeah, because if you think about it, everything else is outsourced manufacturing, and right now, even as we speak, the country of Canada, which is surprising to me, is conducting an investigation into Nike for the violations of volunteer labor.
This is what I was getting at, like the warehouse distributions. This is So marketing and sales, that too.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, you guys know what I'm talking about in the chat, definitely.
Yeah, and it's again, I mean, Nike has a history of that. Disney has a little bit of a history with that, and they have a convenient location to filming locations as well. So you don't know.
Yeah, they're not shutting down the sweatshops. They're shutting down all the American jobs and stuff. Is what I was getting at. Shipping jobs and all that stuff. But anyway, we got some more super chats here. Facatino says with $4.99, Tom talking about how bad digital in 28 days later no longer exists on streaming services or to buy on Apple. Okay, and there may be a reason for this. That is because I believe Danny Boyle is doing the remaster of it right now. So the license probably came up for it. So they're probably doing all that now, getting it ready, ramping it up, and it probably will pop out again here real soon because they're doing another sequel to that, right? Culture? They're doing the 28 months later, years later.
28,000 seconds later. I don't know.
I don't know what it is. But anyway, they got a third one coming out. Yeah.
28 months later. I don't know.
And last I heard, Boyle was lurking on a 4K remaster of this. So there you go. Yeah. That might be something to look forward to for you. Titties sends another 14 South African rand, says Harvey Weinstein be like, miss my gross ass yet? Yeah, well, look, what he did on for the screen side of things and his personal life are two completely different things, and I don't know how much they really crossed over. That's the sad part, to be honest with you. But yeah, Bob's the one who got hurt the most in this whole thing, because Bob actually knew how to make movies that made money too. People forget that, right? And Bob didn't do nothing wrong. So anyway, but that was like the thing we kept hearing from people that worked with them, right? Andre, was that Harvey made the movies that cost all the money and made all the accolades, but Bob was the one that made all the movies that made the money to make Harvey's movies.
Pretty much, yes. Harvey brought the awards, Bob brought the money. And that's how they got the thing to go around.
Yeah, Bob oversaw the stuff like Hellraiser and Prophecy and all the cool stuff. Like Harvey would interject on things like Scream because that made money, But other than that, like he was making stuff like The English Patient and Shakespeare in Love. He was all worried about that kind of crap. But anyway, John Doe sends in $2. Says I'd watch a Walt D biopic starring Chris Pratt. I think you're probably joking with this, but anything would be better than Tom Hanks. That was one of the worst casting decisions in the history of casting. I swear. I don't even hate the movie, but it's like that's not Walt Disney. That's Tom Hanks through the whole damn thing. But yeah, a good Walt pick would be nice. Jason Webster sends in 5 Australian dollar redues and says, great to see The Boy and the Heron win 2 Annie Awards at the BAFTA for Outstanding Animated Feature. Oh, yeah, the BAFTAs went on, didn't they? Didn't Oppenheimer win a few things, I think? Something like that. Hound Monkey has been a member for 6 months. Thank you for that. Lost for Words has been here for 25 months. Holy crap. And Rico Zorro has been here for 26 months. Thank you so much for supporting the channel, guys. And we will be hopefully having a member stream in the next few days here. I know I got an appointment tomorrow. But what are we looking for? Maybe.
Well, if you got an appointment tomorrow, then I'm guess for.
I mean, I could do it if we do it and get me out of here by a certain time. That's the thing. So
yeah. We'll see. We'll talk about it afterwards. We'll see what time you have.
Basically, tomorrow I'd have to have left like 10 minutes ago or 15 minutes ago. Let's say that gives you a time frame. But anyway, Jason Webster says with another Australian $2 says the VES awards are being held this Wednesday. What are VES? VES. They are Visual Effect Awards. Yes, thank you, 6. So thank you for that. So there you go. Maybe Godzilla will win. Yeah. Yes, may Crom be with him. Michael Nemo says 5 and says, what did Prey do differently than Marvel's Madam Web and Echo? Prey is a recent standout for me. I even thought the recent Hellraiser wasn't bad at all. I did not see Prey, so I can't speak to that one.
Hellraiser, the Predator movie, or
yeah. The Hellraiser one, I think, is because even though they had, I mean, let's say, okay, they would reach the standards of diversity and inclusion in that movie. They didn't flaunt it in the film so much, and I think it worked in that film's advantage, not trying to bring in another guy to play Pinhead, as opposed to make a version that was a little bit closer to the book. I think Andre probably agrees with that. But as far as Prey, I didn't see that. I think you did, though, didn't you?
Actually, I didn't. I will say that
Culture might be the only one who saw it.
I haven't gotten around to seeing it yet. I was so annoyed by the fact that they made a dubbed version in the original language that the tribe would have been speaking. And I was like, oh, dude, you should have just done Apocalypto and have them speak the original language during the shoot and do an English dubbed version, if anything. But anyway, I think you're referring to the diversity here. It's a naturally diverse story. So there's like, because it's a Native American story. And here's like the thing. Any story is diverse unless it has white people in it. So if you have something that is set in a time and a place where there's no white people, congratulations, you just met your diversity quota, which is really ultimately about restricting the number of white people. And if you have like a natural story that takes place there, then that's basically any story that takes place where the white people are not the majority population, then you've just hit your diversity quota, and you can do it in a completely natural, organic way. That's what Prey did different. As for Hellraiser, well, yeah, it's gay and all of that, but there's a precedent for that, because so is Clive Barker and so is most of his writing. I actually think that the Hellraiser remake was a very good remake. The only thing I didn't like about it was the lead actress.
Yeah.
Who really should play Amy Pascal in an Amy Pascal biopic, because she looks,
oh my God,
every bit the homeless beggar like Amy Pascal. But she kind of ruined the movie for me, because I don't mind like such a dirty, smelly hippie as a side character, but when that's the point of view character that I'm supposed to emphasize with, then I just kind of like just want to get her off the screen, because I can practically smell her through it. And I'm like, yeah, no, like So kudos to the actress. I mean, she did a very good job as playing a dirty, smelly hippie, just a little bit too good, in my opinion, because she made the movie kind of unwatchable.
There'll be adjuncts to it.
Yeah, you see that, but she'd make a perfect Amy Pascal.
Now, Culture, did you see Prey
Or did you see the Hellraiser remake? So you see why this
Okay,
lead woman would have been so
I
good to
saw
Amy
Prey.
Pascal.
Yeah, I saw Prey. It was fine. I did not see the Hellraiser thing. I just skipped it. I noped out on it.
It
so-
wasn't as bad as you'd think, but Prey I was
No,
kind
it's
of
actually
more
pretty
concerned
good.
with.
Okay.
My issues with Prey weren't even the whammon part. My issue with Prey was like I just saw it as kind of like this. Isn't that kind of like really punching below the belt for a Predator? Like, wasn't that kind of at least in my opinion the
It was
point of
supposed. It's
Predator showing up in the first two movies was that we were hitting that point technologically that we were actually a threat now.
Well, and again, the lore there should be it's trying it tries to find something that is going to be a challenge. That
Exactly my point, right?
Yeah.
Like until that's what I was saying. Until the 20th century here, we're like, I don't think that the Predators would be even interested in us. Like we're not even worth their time until we have guns and bombs and shit. Yeah.
No, and I also think that there was a lot of moments of disbelief that I had to. The big ask was there, and it was there too often for me. But that's a whole other conversation. So.
And that's why, yeah. I mean, I like the first two Predator films. Outside of that, AVP is okay, but yeah, I mean, I just always thought that's more of a, like a hunter's pride thing. Why would you go hunt a rabbit when you're a lion hunter? Right? Like that to me just makes absolutely no sense other than for food, right? Like it's just anyway. And if people liked it, that's cool. I know a lot of people did like it, but I've heard some people go it was meh. But I just haven't got around to watching it yet. So Jason Webster sends in $5 and says the remake of Shogun starts next Wednesday. Oh, Hirosako Sanada, Hiroyaki. How do you say that, Culture? Hiroyuki? There we go. Hiroyuki.
Yeah, you got it. Hiroyuki.
Hiroyuki Sanada is the perfect choice to play Lord Toranaga. Yeah, that could be true. And then we got Darmuth on the Rumble side of things. Speaking of Rumble, we may be headed over to Rumble very, very soon for a quick debriefing and discussion on what we may believe must be happening behind the scenes with Pro.
Pro's back, baby.
Good timing. We're about to read Darmuth's Rumble rant.
Yeah, we just have a couple of super chats to go through here, and then we can.
Actually, this one's perfect for you because you were talking about this earlier, Pro.
Yeah,
talk about like how the stars are aligning today. Hey, Midnight's Edge, wanted to know your thoughts on the SORA AI thing, and is it possible future use in Hollywood or independent scene? Actually, we talked quite a bit about this earlier, Darmuth. I don't know if you came to the show late, so you might want to rewind after we discuss this. But yeah, Pro, you've been talking a little bit about this, haven't you?
Well, what we need to know about SORA and future iterations of SORA and future iterations of AI in this area is, can I, for example, tell the artificial intelligence to create a particular character, or can I feed it an image of a particular character and then have it consistently play that character back? Because if it can do that, then I can make a movie with a consistent looking character that maintains uniformity across 90 minutes, let's say. And you can render this out scene by scene. If that's not possible, then you're going to have to be extraordinarily creative in how you're going to do this, because you're going to have, what would you say, incongruent imagery of characters. And so there's a way to get around that, but it's going to be tough. If it can maintain a singular image of a character or a concept of a character across various renderings, then this will be immensely powerful. And yes, I think you'll literally be able to create your own movie. I think it'll probably be expensive. You'll have to spend tokens or something, I bet. But eventually, yeah, I think you can make your own movie that looks every bit as amazing as something you see in Hollywood right now.
Well, and what have I been saying? I've been saying it's going to take somebody to make to redo the Star Wars sequels with one of these AI things and do it better than them, and then maybe they'll take. No, but Culture, I know we're losing you, so I'd love to hear your take quick on this.
No, I think the uniformity thing is the most important thing, and I think you'll be able to maintain that. There are examples out there of this being used to great effect. I would love to play with this and see if I could put together, at least a previs of the film that I want to make. And I think I could probably walk it through prompt by prompt. If you've had any experience with AI and prompting it to get it to do what you want it to do, then I would imagine it's not any more difficult with this tool. I'm hopefully going to get an opportunity to jump on Sora AI as soon as it becomes more widely available. The prospect of replacing a studio with one person and a brain, I think that's great. So you won't have a dearth of creativity anymore, and Hollywood won't be able to hold a candle to something like that.
I've got a project that we've talked about turning it into a graphic novel. It's just a question of bandwidth, and it's a question of getting the right people on board. It's something that we had anticipated doing later this year or next year. First time I've ever talked about this, by the way. I've had some individuals with that Park Place look over some of the drafts of things. I have to say, if in the near term, artificial intelligence can produce a movie for you, if you can sit there, that's the way I would go. I mean, I would take this and literally turn it into a movie and shoot it out there on YouTube and just see what happens.
Yeah.
All right.
I think Tom is hoping that I will make the AI generated hero in his likeness. Tom,
I think
you got
so.
it, man. I'm on it.
I'd be all for that. And then
Yeah.
Big Boss SB says for $9.99. Andre, you said earlier it looks like the media is going out of its way to torpedo Madam Web. You think this is a ploy by Disney to tank Sony Spider-Man movies? They're willing to give up their rights? Well, they don't have to give up their rights no matter what. I mean, this movie has extended the rights, and so will Craven, and so will Venom. So, and it's extended for 7 years just that way. I don't think that that it's necessarily any more complicated than the entertainment media complex being a little bit desperate for headlines. Sony is a very acceptable target, and right now they'd actually be catering to their readers by doing this. So I think there's a little bit of just like blood in the water and mob mentality. That's my first thought here. But we have seen before that certain musical remakes where Disney has another musical remake coming later, and the first one that isn't Disney was really attacked by the critics. So could there be something to it? I don't know. What do you guys think? Culture, let's begin with you before WDW Pro weighs in. Is this just the media being on a feeding frenzy, or are they running Disney's errand by ganging up on Sony?
I think it's a little of both, actually. I think it's a fair balance of each. The film isn't particularly good. Everything that it was maligned for from the beginning, was borne out in digital presence in the theater. And I think that it's easy to take stabs at Sony if you're Disney, because you're really not thrilled that you have to share a character like Spiderman with them. It also does tarnish Disney because Spider-Man is associated with Disney's Marvel Studios as well. And in fact, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, two of the girls that were in this, Dakota and Sydney Sweeney, both accidentally looped in Marvel Studios to this project in their social medias, which I believe is fully inaccurate. So, yeah, I have to tell you, I'm just absolutely I'm kind of a little thrilled that the media is going after this, but there's some defense too. They're trying to play defense for Dakota Johnson's sake, that all of these series of coincidences weren't leaked to the fact that she knew this movie was garbage. I think all of the girls knew it. I think they all realized that once they were involved in it, and then the script changed during or prior to production as well, that they were kind of doomed into this, non-superhero film. I'm just not surprised. Go ahead, Tom.
I think you're both onto something here. At least
Yeah.
I kind of leaning more towards what you said, Culture. I think even though there's face-saving measures going on for the actresses involved,
Yeah.
Notice nobody's really coming out in defense of S.J. Clarkson though.
No.
Yeah, like I think Disney did this. I think there may be some I don't know if they did it specifically, but I'm going to say that there are people who are trying to help Disney in this matter because, yeah, I think you're right. I think Sony, especially people like Amy Pascal, for instance, have used this as a way to lure in people thinking they're going to be part of the MCU, because that's what we heard from multiple people coming out of this production, is that these ladies were tricked into thinking they were going to be part of the MCU when they realized, oh, we're not. And that just confirms what you just said there with them tagging MCU and mistaking that in their whole thing. And then it came out later going, yeah, we realized it's not part of the MCU. It's some side piece thing. And yeah, I think that there's people who are trying to highlight that. This is stuff that Andre and I were trying to highlight years ago, you know, and for better or worse, look, I'm not trying to stick up for Disney, but Sony doesn't have a very good track record with Spider-Man characters.
I think that Sony tried to deceive them because remember,
I think so too, exactly.
They are making this movie so that you are supposed to believe that this is the MCU, because originally, the Peter Parker in this movie was supposed to be the Andrew Garfield Peter Parker, and the movie was supposed to be set in the 90s. But then some asshat decided that no. The Peter Parker that is to be born here is the Tom Holland Peter Parker, meaning that this is Sony's MCU adjacent thing, which they intend to be part of the MCU. It's just that they can't feature any of the characters associated with the MCU, and they can't call it the MCU, but they can make it so that the viewer think that this is an MCU movie.
There'll be adjuncts to it.
You know, exactly. And I also think that they may have equally deceived their cast. Like think, oh, this is the prequel to the Tom Holland Spider-Man, because we're Sony and we have the rights with him. And then they've basically been let on to think that this is an MCU movie when it isn't. So yeah, Pro, any thoughts on this before we move on?
I don't think that there has to be any extra effort to destroy Madam Web. I think that audiences are doing that. I think there's no louder voice than the market, and the market has absolutely spoken. Indeed.
And Sony really didn't leave them many other things to say, now did they? And then Chris K says for $5, is there a place that the former animation and writing experts from Disney have been migrating to, or has the DEI situation kept them unemployed? The latter, it's kept them unemployed.
For those who are trying to stay in the industry, Skydance has been one place that they tended to have gone. But in terms of the old white men, the institutional wisdom and knowledge that was what set Disney apart for 80 years, that's no small deal. Yeah, they were just kicked to the curb. They retired.
Indeed. And then Chris, you had this one, right? The Chris K one or no? Andre, did you read the Chris? Oh, yes. Kenneth LaRock sends in 5 Canadian and says, how much money did they get from Pepsi and how much will they have to return? Well, they probably won't have to return any of it, but they probably got a nice chunk of change for that Pepsi deal, which is ironic because Coca-Cola used to own Columbia Pictures.
That's really funny, right?
There's some kind of joke in there somewhere with this crashing Pepsi sign and how this movie's failing and being owned by Coke before Sony bought them. And there's something there. I'm working on it in my brain.
I said, yeah, I think you're onto something and I said in my review, and I think again in a video that I'm trying to get edited for release later today, that this is only the beginning of what they've got to do with product placement now to pay for these disasters, because they have to offset the expenses here, and it's not going to be with box office ticket sales. This film, I know, Tom, you think that Netflix deal is going to bail them out, but I think they're going to struggle to recover the promotional budget. I think this film, despite its limited expenditure, even though it was now reportedly, based on what the trades are saying, over $100 million, even with the tax incentives and the product placement and all of that, and the 80-some million dollars that they spent on the promotion and all that, I think that they'll be hard pressed to lose less than $50 million. So
there you go. And then we got Arden Blade. Sorry, not Adrian. Sends in a $1.99, says Nike has a huge marketing department. It's bloated. Yeah, I'm sure that's where a big chunk is going to be cut, I'd imagine.
Well, what do they have left to market? I mean,
exactly. That's what I'd say. Yeah.
They've already turned off a huge swath of customers. You know what I haven't seen is Skechers going out there and taking a controversial opinion on something. I've only seen it the well-advertised Nike stuff, and they dropped their deal with Tiger Woods and everything else, and they really are avoiding excellence.
There you go. And then Daryl Brewer has been here for 30 months, and he's also one of our illustrious mods. Says, Tom, I forgive you. I was totally busting your chops. No, but I owe Daryl a bit of an apology yesterday, and the hecticness of getting out of the show. I thanked the wrong man for helping us all yesterday. I said D-Bud when I meant Daryl. So I apologize again, Daryl. And he's an awesome guy for forgiving me. But we're going to be heading over to Rumble, kids, because things are going to get spicy.
Yeah, indeed. We're not even going to say how spicy, just saying that if you head on over to Rumble and you find Midnight's Edge there, then we'll be continuing over there right now, whereas we're going to end this YouTube stream. But speaking of YouTube, we have to welcome Larry as a member. Oh, Larry, and last call with Troy Pacheri renewed, has been a member for 11 months. So that is fantastic. And
I have something really quick that YouTube has recently rolled out, that you can like super chats, so you can show some love and appreciation for different super chats that people send in. It doesn't apply to super stickers or member chats or Rumble rants, but I just thought it'd be kind of fun to look at the end of the show to see which question or comment got the most. And it was one from the DCV Titan, who says, a legal question, quick, light the mindset signal. So that was our winner today.
Yeah. And then we also, before we switch off this end, Mr. Arx47 has been a member for 34 months, and Take Your 610 says, what happened to that writer who said, we don't need more toy movies, we need more movies by women for women. Then we get the Marvels and Madam Web. Well, who said that? Was it Victoria Alonso? In that case, she got fired.
I think it might have been, but the irony of that is, and then what was one of the biggest movies of last year? A movie made for women about a toy.
Barbie. Yeah, and it got stiffed at the BAFTAs last night again.
That's what I was hearing. Yeah, Oppenheimer ran away with.
Yeah, but the People's Choice Awards was last night, and you know who the #1 action star was?
Madam Web.
No, Rachel Zegler.
What did she do with action this year?
I don't know.
Oh yeah,
of course, Hunger Games. Yeah. Hunger Games.
She really didn't do a lot of action or acting in that, though.
Yeah, well, look, John Wick is rolling down a staircase, but it's fine.
All right, so with that, thank you so much, Taker610. We're gonna head on over to Rumble, and I think Culture is actually gonna scooch out on us on the in between. So go ahead and plug your wares, sir, real quick.
Yeah, check out my channel, Culture Casino on YouTube. I am on another subscriber drive. We're closing in on hopefully 20K, and yeah, I really do appreciate all the support I get from all of the channels I get to hang out on. We are sitting a little over 18K now, on our way to 20. So if I could get to 20 by the end of the month, that would be spectacular. Also, Six and I are planning the Pigtail stream, so maybe by happenstance that'll be at the same time. 20K and Pigtails, yay me!
Awesome.
Yeah.
Right,
anyway, thanks, guys.
Pigtails. Go Culture.
We'll see you guys on the Rumble side of things.
Bye.
Let's see. How do we? Oh yeah, this.
Click the button, Tom. Here we go.
I hit the remove thing.